Today on Alex Autos, we're out here taking a look at the all-new 2015 Mercedes-Benz C-Class. This particular model is a C300 4Matic. Now, if I'm perfectly honest, the last two generations of the Mercedes-Benz C-Class have been a little bit less than competitive, but that's completely different for the 2015 model year. Now, part of that has to do with the fact that the C-Class is no longer the least expensive Mercedes in America. That's now the Mercedes-Benz CLA, and that's why they've been able to raise the price on the C300 and improve the feature content on the outside and on the inside. The front of the C-Class gets an all-new treatment for the 2015 model year, and it integrates it better with the rest of the Mercedes-Benz family. Like certain other Mercedes models, there are three different front ends for the 2015 model year. What you're taking a look at right here is the Sport trim, and the Sport trim gets slightly larger grille openings on the bottom, and it gets this chrome strip running right along the bottom. Now, the regular trim looks very much like this, but as I said, it omits this chrome strip, and these grille openings right down here are just a little bit smaller. Other than that, you get the same sort of theme going on with this two-bar Mercedes grille and this large Mercedes logo right in the center. Now, if you get the luxury trim of the C-Class, then you get a very traditional Mercedes grille and you get a hood ornament on the top. Our model has the optional LED headlamps, and those are LED high beams and LED low beams. We have a very attractive strip that runs right here through the headlamp, and that is a daytime running lamp module. Now, this large Mercedes logo here is very attractive, but it also serves a practical function. It actually conceals the radar cruise control module, and that cruise control module offers both adaptive cruise control functions as well as pre-collision warning and pre-collision intervention. At 184.5 inches long, the C-Class is 4 inches longer than last year's C-Class. That actually places this at the top end of the scale in terms of the compact luxury sedans. This is a little bit longer than a 3 Series, but not quite as long as an Audi A4. Now, even though it's not quite as long as an Audi A4, you get a little bit more room on the inside because of what's going on up front. The A4 in base form is a front-wheel drive vehicle, and as such, the engine is entirely in front of the front axle, and that doesn't result in quite as much space efficiency as going on right here in the C-Class. Now, even though the trend in the luxury category is definitely towards coupe styling, thankfully Mercedes has retained their relatively traditional rear shape right here, and that gives you more rear headroom than you'll find in some of those really coupe-shaped entries. Out back, the design themes for Mercedes' larger models is very obvious back here. We have these attractive tail lamp modules. They don't wrap onto the trunk lid. The trunk lid is shaped kind of like a spoiler, it goes up a little bit at the end. All models have these nice integrated exhaust tips. Keep in mind that we are in the C300. This is essentially the same look on the C300 and the C400. At the moment, there are only two engines available in the United States. Things start out with a 2-liter 4-cylinder gasoline turbocharged engine. It produces 241 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. This is essentially the same engine that you'll find in the Mercedes-Benz CLA 250, kicked up just half a notch. Now, if you opt for the C400, then we get a 3-liter twin-turbo V6 engine. It's a brand new engine for the United States. It produces 329 horsepower and 354 pound-feet of torque. That's more power and more torque than you'll find in the BMW 335i. Now, Mercedes has indicated that they will likely bring a diesel engine to the US as well as an AMG-specific model, but they haven't given us any details on that yet. Both engines are mated exclusively to a 7-speed automatic transmission in the US. There is no manual transmission available at this time. There is also no rear-wheel drive model available yet in the US, so both models are all-wheel drive only using Mercedes-Benz 4Matic all-wheel drive system. We're told that early next year there will be a rear-wheel drive version of the 2-liter turbocharged engine. Keeping in mind that all-wheel drive system, fuel economy comes in at 24, 31, 27 for the 2-liter turbo version and drops to 21, 29, 24 for the 3-liter turbo. Front seat comfort comes in at 10 out of 10 points. This is the most comfortable driver's seat that you'll find in the compact luxury category. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that this comes with a standard 14-way power driver's seat. Now, by my math calculations, this is actually a 16-way power driver's seat. There's a 4-way adjustable lumbar support on the seat, and then over on the door we have a 2-way power adjustable headrest. And then, of course, we have the usual functions, and most importantly, we have a power adjustable thigh cushion in this vehicle as well, which allows us to extend the thigh cushion, and all of this is memory linked to the 3-position memory, which also includes this tilt telescopic steering column. This is the most adjustability that you can get optional or standard in this category. While the driver's seat clearly gets top marks in this segment, the passenger seat comes down just 1 notch to 9 out of 10 points because it's not as adjustable as the driver's seat regardless of what option packages you get. Rear seat comfort comes in at 9 out of 10 points, which is a significant increase for the C-Class versus the last generation C-Class. We have seats that are a little bit higher off the floor than the last generation. We get more headroom and more legroom than the last generation as well. Although the C-Class does not lead this segment in terms of legroom or headroom, we still have very good numbers here, and this is among the top entries in both of those categories. We have a little bit less legroom back here than the Audi A4, but a little bit more than the BMW 3 Series. We have a little bit more headroom back here than the Cadillac Ats, but a little bit less than the BMW 3 Series. Now for your reference, I'm 6 feet tall, and I do have about 3 inches of legroom left if I sit behind myself, and if I lean back in this seat, my hair is just barely brushing the ceiling. I do have a decent amount of headroom there. Moving on over to the right side, this front seat back is all the way back in its tracks, and I do have relatively limited footroom area right here in the back. Part of that's because of how far this front seat moves back, and the rest of it is because we are still in a compact luxury vehicle. Now even so, that 6'5" passenger I had in this front seat was very, very comfortable, so it really wouldn't be a problem at all for that person to move their seat forward about 2 inches or so I could get a little bit more room right here behind that person. In fact, this C-Class is almost as large in the back seat area as the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. Now, one significant difference between this and the E-Class will be obvious if you scoot right on over to the middle seat and then try to put 2 people in the outboard seats. This is still a compact stance, so it's not as wide as something like a 5 Series or an E-Class, so you aren't going to be able to fit 3 people across the back quite as comfortably as you could in those options. Still, the center seat is surprisingly comfortable. It sits higher off the ground than these outboard seats, and it's also a little bit further forward in terms of the backrest design as well. Now, rear passengers do get a center armrest with a storage cubby right here. We also get 2 kind of strangely shaped cup holders. They were able to accommodate large takeout drinks, however. As you'd expect, the rear seat backs do fold forward. They do fold forward from the cargo area, however, so you have to go into the trunk and then pull a lever, and then they'll fold forward. Let's start out our interior tour right here on the back door, because the back door in certain luxury vehicles, especially entry-level luxury vehicles, tend to be a little cheaper than the front door, and that's not going on in this Mercedes-Benz C-Class. In fact, you get a little bit more speaker love right up here. If we take a look at these speaker grills, these are actually laser-cut speaker grills. They're very attractive. This is part of the up-level sound system that our particular model has, and of course this is linden wood trim right there on the doors as well. Wood trim is optional on all models of the C-Class. Moving on up to the front, we have height adjustable seat belts for both the driver and the front passenger. These also feature an electronic tensioner up front. Those tighten the seatbelt when you first turn on the car. We also have 4-way adjustable headrests on the passenger side. These are 4 ways that are manual. On the driver's side, 2 of the ways are powered by default, and then you can move the headrest in and out manually. If we take a look at the front doors, you'll notice the same sort of style going on as the rear doors. This is all hand-stitched pleather on our particular model because we do not have the leather seats. This is linden wood going all the way up to the front right there, and as you can see, we have that very same looking speaker grille. Mercedes does love to put their seat controls right over here on the front door. Now, this entire door is all soft touch plastics or stitched pleather, except for that small portion of hard plastic that's right there where you'd actually put a bottle, and that's just the inside of the storage well on the door. Now, our particular model has the up-level 8-inch navigation screen right here on the dashboard. By default, you do get a 7-inch screen. It's very similar in terms of looks. Now, a lot of people have been asking me, why is it that modern vehicles have been going towards this sort of tablet computer grafted onto the dashboard look? The answer is simple. It helps make the dashboard less bulky. That makes the car look roomier and actually feel roomier as well. Because if this screen was actually integrated into the dashboard, we wouldn't have as much room below the screen in the dashboard, or we'd have to have a bigger hump on the dashboard that would reduce visibility. It would also make the car look a little bit smaller on the inside. Now, if we look over here on the passenger side, by doing this, this has also allowed Mercedes to push that dashboard slightly further forward. That helps improve passenger room right over there on the passenger side. Now, because of the shape of that dashboard, we do have a glove box that opens a little bit differently, and it also doesn't open quite as far as some of the competition. I was, however, still able to fit an iPad right inside there. We have these 3 air vents that have a very solid feel to them. They close individually by rotating this little knob right in the center, which I do find a little bit handy. Nice thing also is that you can actually point this far right vent also towards the driver, because I'm kind of an air hog. To the right of that start-stop button, we have the controls for our dual-zone climate control. These are toggle switches, so you actually click them up to raise your temperature up, down to raise temperature down. Same sort of thing goes on for the fan control. And we also have a menu button that takes you right back to the command menu right there in the system. You can also get climate control readouts, and then there are some dedicated buttons for various command features like navigation, radio, media, telephone, vehicle settings. We have our hazard lights over there, and an eject button for our optical disc player nestled right into the dashboard. Below that, we have this large panel that opens up to reveal 2 large cup holders. I was very easily able to put a large takeout drink right there, as you can see. Behind that is a 12-volt power outlet, and we also have an ashtray opening right there. Now, right behind those cup holders, we have our Agility Select button. All models do get the Agility Select, even if you don't get the air suspension. If you don't get the air suspension, then it basically just controls the steering, the engine, and the transmission, along with the climate control if you switch it to Eco mode. Now over here we have the new Mercedes Command controller. If you want to know more about this generation of Mercedes Command, then click on that banner at the bottom of your screen. You'll be taken on over to our review specifically on the Command system. But in a nutshell, we have a back button, we have a favorite button right over here on this side. This is your typical rotary command module. It moves up, down, side to side, rotates around, and clicks to enter. Over here we have our volume control. This reminds me a lot of Audi's MMI. We have an on-off button for the system. This enables or disables the engine start-stop system that our model is equipped with. What's new for this generation of Command really is this module right down here. This is actually a touch controller, so we can actually draw on this, or we can use it to navigate around the system. We also have a back button. This brings up our infotainment now playing selection on the bottom of the screen, and then we have another favorite button right there. This does not move in the traditional sense, so you do move around like that with the system, or you click down to enter. Moving further back, we have the center console with a bifold door. We also have two USB inputs right down here. Right now I have an iPhone connected. You can connect the iPhone with the Apple USB connector, or you can use the Mercedes USB connector. We also have an auxiliary input right there. Over on the driver's side, we have a relatively traditional 2-dial analog instrument cluster. We have the tachometer over there on the right, speedometer right over here on the left. We also have a digital LED readout for our fuel level right over there, and our engine temperature in degrees Celsius right over here on the right. Now in the center we have this all-new color multi-information display. This is brand new for Mercedes, and it has a lot of functions that you didn't find on the outgoing model, along with a number of functions that are relatively familiar. That display is controlled by this button array on the steering wheel that we'll take a look at in a bit. We have a home button, up, down, OK button. We have a back button, and this is a voice command cancel button that corresponds with the voice command button on the other side of the steering wheel. Now on the multi-information display, we have our drive mode right up there. We also have a little steering wheel icon that tells us whether or not the steering assistance system is activated. If it turns green, that means the steering assistance system is actually steering for you. We have our transmission display right over there beside it. We get our usual odometer, and then we also have range and consumption information along with an eco display. If we hit the back button, that takes us right back to the home screen. We also get a navigation readout here. If we did have navigation active in this vehicle, it would give us a small map right on there as well. If we go down to radio, that'll allow us to change our radio station. Right now we're on satellite radio, so we can choose between various different radio stations. Selecting media activates the media interface in the system. Right now you can see it's paired with my iPhone, and that is plugged in via USB. You can change the tracks of the playlist that you're currently on as well. We also have the assistance graphic, and as you can see right here, it shows the car that we're in right now. If there was a car in front of us as defined by the radar cruise control, you'd have an icon right there in the center. It'll tell you how far that car is away from you, what your set distance is. You can also see the lane departure warning and lane departure prevention systems operating as well. Moving on out to the steering wheel, our model has this attractive flat-bottomed 3-spoke steering wheel with sport grips right up here on top. You'll also find shift paddles on either side, down on this side, up on this side right over here. This is that button module that we were taking a look at earlier, home button for that multi-information display, back, up, down, and OK. We have our voice command button on this side, and we have our voice command cancel button right over here on this side. On this side of the steering wheel, you will also find volume up and down and a dedicated hang up and pick up button for the phone. Now Mercedes loves stalks, so we do have quite a few on the steering wheel. We have our shifter stalk right over here. It's sort of a joystick affair. We pull down for drive, push up for reverse, up slightly for neutral, and then we push this button for park right there. On the other side of the steering wheel, we have 3 more stalks. Right here we have our turn signal stalk. This is also where you'll find your windshield wiper controls. This stalk adjusts the steering wheel column itself, so that allows you to go up and down and in and out. This is memory linked. And then right down here we have the stalk for our cruise control. Since we have radar cruise control on our particular model, we also have this little knob that you turn to adjust the distance between the car in front of you. Last but not least, moving up to the ceiling, we have our map light buttons. The map lights are actually located in the rear view mirror. They're not up here in the center console, but this is how you turn them on and off. We have our dome light, which is this LED strip right across the top. And then we also have our telematics button right over here. We have the SOS button. Pop that open sort of like a fighter jet, and you press the red button if you need assistance. We also have the maintenance button and then general information right over here. When it comes to cargo hauling, the C-Class gives us one of the largest trunks in this category. If we open it up here, we also have a very large opening, which is very handy for inserting large items like luggage. So right here I have a 24-inch roller bag, and you'll notice I can actually insert it in this direction right here into the rear without a problem. Over here I have a 26-inch roller bag, and I can actually insert it in the cargo area in exactly the same fashion thanks to the overall height of this cargo area. That means it's easier to put a large amount of functional luggage right here in the back. Now one thing to keep in mind is that the trunk does get narrower towards the back, towards those rear seats, so you do want to put your smaller luggage in first and then put your larger items like this in, because this cannot go all the way back because of the size of the trunk. We do get folding rear seat backs. Just pull these levers right here on each side in order to fold those seat backs down. There's no button or lever on the inside to do that. You have to do that from the trunk. Now, taking a closer look at this cargo area, this load floor does lift up and it hooks right there onto the rubber seal to give you a little bit better access. We have a flip out cargo divider right down there. We have some high visibility jackets, cargo net, little storage well right there, and a first aid kit in our model. Thanks to a large trunk and a generously sized opening, the C300 scores 10 out of 10 points when it comes to my exclusive trunk comfort index. This trunk is furnished very nicely. These trunk hinges don't impact on the cargo area too much. We also have a nice assist handle to help you open and close the trunk lid as well. There's also an available power close option for the trunk lid, but our model doesn't get it. Even so, I still give this 10 out of 10 points. The most important thing to keep in mind with the C300 when you're test driving this back-to-back with the competition is that the C300 is all-wheel drive, as well as the C400. All C-Class models, as I said earlier, sold in the United States are going to be all-wheel drive until early 2015, when there will be a rear-wheel drive only version of the C300. Now, the reason that's important is because all-wheel drive definitely affects the driving dynamics of the vehicle. Now, the C-Class is still a rear-wheel drive biased system, and so that means that the engine and transmission are going to be sending most of their power to the rear wheels, but about 40% of that is always going to be going to the front wheels. This is very similar in terms of power distribution to Audi's Quattro design. The other thing you need to know about the C-Class is that it has lost a significant amount of weight over the last version of the C-Class, and that really helps improve the handling out on these winding mountain roads. Although the power distribution figures from the all-wheel drive system are very similar to the Audi, the handling dynamics are very different, and this is much more similar to the Cadillac and the BMW. In terms of acceleration, we ran from 0 to 60 in this 2-liter turbo model in 5.75 seconds. That's a very good figure for a 2-liter turbocharged entry in this segment. One thing worth noting is that turbo lag is still a little bit of a problem in this 2-liter turbo engine, even though this is one of the more recent turbo designs. It's definitely noticeable in the 0 to 30 time, which is a little bit longer than I had expected. And that turbo lag is why you're starting to see turbo and supercharged engines like Volvo's Drive E family of engines, which does compete with this Mercedes-Benz C-Class. Volvo uses a supercharger for low-end improvement and a turbocharger for high-end improvement in performance. I mentioned the Volvo Drive E engines because Volvo's S60 T6 front-wheel drive is going to be priced about the same as this C300. Now, that Volvo will give you better 0 to 60 performance, but the handling is going to be much, much better in this C300. In terms of handling, I give this 8 out of 10 points. The feel is absolutely excellent. In fact, I prefer the steering feel in this to the BMW 328i. It's very accurate, it has a very good weight to it. However, in terms of absolute road holding and agility, I do have to give the crown to Cadillac's ATS. It is a very, very good sedan out on the road. Now, the ATS doesn't have as good of a ride. I do give this a 10 out of 10 when it comes to ride, both in the regular suspension version and in the air suspension version. Now, in terms of performance and handling, the C-Class feels way more confident than the last generation C-Class out on the road. This is a very dynamic sedan. It's an awful lot of fun to drive out on these winding mountain roads in a way that the C-Class has never been before. Part of that is, of course, because of the lightweight construction, but a lot of it has to do with the suspension and the steering design in this vehicle. They're all working very well together. This is an incredibly well-balanced sedan in terms of steering feel, suspension dynamics, handling ability, etc. It's just that everything is very well matched in this vehicle. When it comes to braking, the large brakes in the C-Class give this 9 out of 10 points. Fade resistance is absolutely excellent, and the stopping distances are shorter than I thought they would be. That does come down to the light curb weight of the C300. Likely thanks to the all-wheel drive system that is standard on every C-Class sold in America, I haven't been achieving the EPA combined ratings. I've been averaging about 23 miles per gallon in mixed driving with the C300, which is a little bit less than I had expected it to be. If you're after the best fuel economy in this segment, you will find that in entries like the BMW 320i, the 328i, and the Volvo S60 with the front-wheel drive configuration. In terms of cabin noise, I give this 9 out of 10 points. The Lexus IS is still quieter out on the road, but this is one of the quieter entries. I think the C300 is my favorite model. It definitely feels a little bit lighter than the C400, even though it's not quite as fast out on the road. Mercedes has definitely reprogrammed this 7-speed automatic transmission to be much more responsive than previous generations. Although one thing that I dislike about this transmission is that it doesn't have a true manual mode. This transmission will automatically upshift for you and downshift for you, even though you're using the paddle shifters on the steering wheel. On the bright side, however, this transmission is incredibly quick shifting. It feels more like a dual clutch transmission than the ZF 8-speed that pretty much everybody else is using. Now, someone asked me to comment on the Agility Select button on this vehicle. It is standard on all models, even those without the air suspension. It allows you to select from individual, Sport, Sport Plus, Comfort, and Eco modes. Now, the difference in this particular vehicle, since we don't have the air suspension, is primarily steering, engine, and transmission programming. Sport Plus is going to give you the most aggressive transmission shift, it's going to give you the most aggressive throttle mapping, and it also firms up this variable gear ratio steering. Now on the opposite end of the spectrum, Eco Mode gives you more aggressive upshift programming on the transmission, so it will more rapidly try to get to 7th gear. We also get toned down climate control and slightly softer steering. Now individual mode allows you to select between those various modes, and unlike the BMW systems, this does not reduce the traction or stability control when you're in Sport Plus. You can do that on your own, separately from those systems. Now, if you were worried that the most luxurious C-Class ever built was going to turn into a marshmallow the first time it saw a corner, then think again. This is a very good car out on the road. In fact, this is one of the most fun vehicles in this segment. Again, it's not quite as good as the Cadillac Ats, but it's very, very close. Pricing for the 2015 C-Class starts with the C300 4Matic at $40,400. Now again, having that Mercedes CLA at the bottom of the Mercedes lineup has allowed them to make the C-Class a little bit more expensive and as a result, a little bit more exclusive. So this is definitely more expensive than the 3 Series starting in America because now BMW has that 320i and Mercedes has chosen not to have a discount version of the C-Class, instead letting the CLA fill that niche. Now, when you're comparing prices, keep in mind that at the current time, all Mercedes C-Class models in the US are all-wheel drive. Mercedes has said that they will be bringing a rear-wheel drive C300 to the US in the 2015 calendar year, so expect that in about 6 months. Our Model S tested right here rang in at $45,470. If you want the C400, that will start at $48,590, and if you load your C400 all the way up, it'll set you back $65,855. Like most European vehicles, the pricing can escalate very rapidly when you start adding options, so if you're on a budget, you need to be careful. Navigation will set you back $2,690. It is packaged with that 8-inch screen in the dashboard that we looked at in part 1. The air suspension system, which I really think is a must-have in the C-Class, is $1,190. It's a standalone option. If you want the radar cruise control, the blind spot information system, and the lane keeping assistance system, that's $2,800. Leather on the inside instead of the MB Tex will set you back $2,300. And last but not least, the package containing the LED headlamps, the surround sound audio system, heated seats, and XM radio will set you back $2,700. There's also an available panoramic moonroof that I'd really think about if I were you. The C300 is definitely my top recommendation in this category, and I would get it nearly fully loaded. So if you're planning on getting a C-Class, plan to spend around $55,000 to $60,000 for the C300. If you want the more dynamic driving experience, then wait a few months. The C300 will be available in rear-wheel drive in the US very soon. When comparing the 2015 C-Class with the rest of the competition, it's important to keep in mind that Mercedes' base model really is a half step above the base entries from the rest of the competition. The BMW 320i is significantly cheaper, but it also is significantly less powerful. The A4 in base trim has a CVT and it's also front-wheel drive. The Cadillac Ats has a base naturally aspirated 2.5-liter engine that's fairly rough. It's not as nice on the inside either. The real BMW competition is the BMW 328xi because the C300 is all-wheel drive by default. Now that BMW is about $2,000 less, but it's about $2,000 less nice on the inside. In terms of handling, the Mercedes-Benz doesn't really give up that much to the BMW because the BMW has really gotten softer in this last generation, and Mercedes-Benz has really firmed up this model. You still can get a manual transmission in certain versions of that 3 Series. You can't in this particular model, and the BMW has 1 extra gear in its transmission. While the 328xi's handling may be a little bit better than the Mercedes-Benz, the Benz will definitely make you feel more special. Audi's A4 is significantly cheaper, but as I said, the base A4 is a front-wheel drive vehicle by default, and I wouldn't really call that competition to the C300 in any form. Instead, that really would be the A4 2.0T Quattro, and that's going to be about $3,000 less than this, but it's definitely $3,000 less car as well. Now, the Audi is getting a little bit old compared to the C-Class. It's due to be redesigned next year, and its interior definitely feels a step behind the Mercedes in quality. Now, as much as I like the Lexus IS250, I think it's a really good value in this segment. You really shouldn't compare that model with the C300 either because it's significantly less powerful. It's not quite as dynamic as this vehicle either. Now, that small 6-cylinder engine from Lexus is an incredibly smooth engine. It's definitely way smoother than this 4-cylinder engine. It's just not nearly as powerful. If you want something that's nearly as powerful as this, you actually have to step up to the IS350. And if you make that jump, then the base IS350 is actually going to be more expensive than this Mercedes-Benz C300. In terms of value, the Lexus will still win because when you compare it comparably with this vehicle feature for feature, the features are going to be less expensive in the Lexus and you'll end up out the door paying less for your Lexus than this Mercedes. Now, of course, as I've said with the other models, the Lexus isn't as nice on the inside as the Mercedes. That's definitely something to keep in mind. You're getting better value in that Lexus, but you're also getting less content and less luxury. Now yet again with the Cadillac ATS, we have to compare the 2.0T all-wheel drive model of that ATS with the C300. It comes in about $2,000 to $3,000 less than this. The Cadillac is easily the handling winner. It really is the new BMW in this segment. It feels very accurate, very responsive, very nimble out on the road. It drives smaller, but it's also physically smaller, so you don't get as much room in the back seat or as much room in the trunk. Also, as much as Cadillac has improved their interiors, especially with that ATS, it's definitely a step behind the Mercedes-Benz C-Class. Infinity's Q50 is a great value. It's definitely less expensive than the C300. However, it really feels more artificial out on the road. Now, Infinity has said they're going to help change that for the next model year by adding back hydraulic power steering to the Q50S model. I haven't had a chance to test that one yet. It's important to keep in mind that the Q50 has no turbocharged engine, very much like the Lexus, so it has a very different feel out on the road than the turbocharged entries from pretty much everybody else. Volvo's S60 offers the best miles per gallon in front-wheel drive trim in this segment. The all-wheel drive is a decent comparison to this, however, it's definitely smaller than this and it's definitely starting to get old as well. Volvo does plan on bringing their S60L to the United States, which will be just about as long as this and have just about as much rear seat room. However, the interior is still going to be a step behind this. Now that Volvo is a good value because it's also about $5,000 to $6,000 less expensive than this Mercedes. As much as I love low sticker prices and I love value, I would still buy the C300 over every other entry in this segment, and here's why. The C-Class feels like it's a full step above every other entry in this category in terms of interior quality. In fact, this feels a little bit more special on the inside than even the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. Now, some of that has to do with the fact that this is the latest model in this category, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that this is no longer competing with the base entries in this category. In addition, the C-Class also manages to span from the sporty side of things with the Sport package and the Sport suspension on it, and that C400 model with its high horsepower engine, all the way to a luxury entry like this with the luxury package, the air ride suspension, which is exclusive to this particular segment, and it's very comfortable out on the highway. That allows the C-Class to go all the way from sporty to highway cruiser, which is something that you don't actually find in the rest of the competition. Now, the C-Class isn't necessarily class leading in a lot of categories, so it's not the best handling vehicle, it's not the quietest vehicle, it's not the fastest vehicle, but it does all of those things incredibly well, and on average, it's definitely higher than every other vehicle in this class. Now that means that my overall value score in the Mercedes comes in at 7 out of 10 points. However, this is definitely my top pick in this category. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the 2015 Mercedes-Benz C300 4Matic. Go ahead and click that subscribe banner at the bottom of your screen and you'll be updated on all of my latest videos. I also encourage you to find me over at facebook.com/AlexOnAutos, at Twitter as AlexOnAutos, and you can always email your questions to alex@alexonautos.com. I'll see you next week.